Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's Road to Success webinar. My name is Philip, and I'll be your host for today's webinar on customer service excellence. I welcome all businesses, professionals, and entrepreneurs across Africa and beyond. And thank you all for joining today's session with us. So for us, I think we have a couple of persons who have joined so far. So we'll just begin just because of time. And then we'll just move to our webinar schema for today. So today we'll be looking at first on our list is a welcome and introduction, webinar agenda, questions and answers, and the last one is the announcement that will be coming from Kuueza. So like I shared earlier, my name is Philip, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, team lead for Kuueza Nigeria. Basically at Kuueza, we are not just here to give African vendors the visibility to access the international market like the United States market, but we're also here to not just give you the visibility, but also to give you the knowledge and the tools that are required to access this market. And that is what today's webinar is all about. So why today's session? I think this is the reason why we are here today. Great customer service drives loyalty and growth. Today's session will equip African SMEs with practical tips to deliver outstanding services, experiences learned from Joseph C. Jota as he shares expert insights on building customers' trust. Let's just quickly meet our keynote speaker. So I will just briefly introduce our keynote speaker, Joseph C. Jota, who is a board member, Manus Gold Bank from the United States of America. Joseph C. Jota is a seasoned banking executive with extensive experience in driving customer satisfaction and operational excellence within the financial services sector. As a board member of the Manus Gold Bank USA, Joseph has led initiatives that prioritize relationship building customers, centered service models, and leadership development in fast-paced businesses environment. His deep insight into service excellence have empowered both large institutions and small enterprise to build trust and loyalty among clients. So just basically taking a look at this, you understand where we are actually going to and the personality we have in our midst today. This is not just our regular, normal one-on-one session with our vendors, where the relationship managers will have a session with the vendor and quickly run them through what we do. This is beyond that. And that's why we're having this personality in our midst. So in today's competitive business landscape, where exceptional customer service is a key differentiator, Joseph's passion for equipping businesses with practical tools to improve client engagement and retention is more vital than ever. We can all see through this. So join us as he shares proven strategies and best practices to help African SMEs deliver customer experience that drive repeat business, foster brand loyalty, and sustainable growth. So without further ado, let's welcome Joseph C. Jota. Thank you so much for having you, sir.
So I use a set of tools. So I have a set of tools that they call it sentiment analysis. So Google has a set of tools. I believe also Amazon has a set of tools, which tells you, okay, what traffic came to your site, number one. Number two, so what's the nature of that traffic? And they give very, very, I'll say, light sentiment analysis. There are another set of tools that gives a more precise sentiment and also put out survey tools. There's a tool called Medallia. Okay, so Medallia is probably, you can find tools. There's some open source tools like Medallia, but Medallia is probably the preeminent tool that does survey and sentiment analysis on digital experiences. So you might want to check that out, called Medallia. Okay. And so what happens is you want that constant feedback. So you're adjusting your digital experience for the feedback. You don't let the feedback sit there for months and you don't do anything about it. Once you see that feedback and you understand it in aggregate, you want to make sure you adjust your digital experience to reflect that. And also it helps you adjust your content. Moreover, it helps you adjust your content. So you're adjusting your content to be sticky to your customers. Okay? And then last but not least, you want to be able to think about the frequently asked questions. This is like one of the big things. Usually people call a contact center because they have a frequently asked question that it's not getting addressed. So you want to really think about what that base and what those frequently asked questions are, and you want to make sure that they're front and center and accessible by your clients. Okay? And then finally, you want to make sure your ways you pay, the way you engage, and things like that are seamless and very comfortable for the client. So they're very trustworthy. So once they're ready to do a transaction with you, you want to make sure that they feel the trust through the process. Okay, that's what and I hate this. The two things that's made Amazon and the other one, Apple, very dominant is that the people feel they trust the experience of transaction. So you want to make sure you have that as well. So that's my initial comments. And I wanted to see if you guys have any questions or thoughts.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Jackson, for that insightful discussion. So I believe at this point, everybody was able to listen, and we are open for questions since Mr. Joseph Jatta is still here to take more questions. I saw a couple of persons who dropped their questions on the comment section. Our team will be on the comment to reply some of your messages while Mr. Joseph Jatta will take the question. So if you have any question, kindly raise up your hand and I'll call your name out for you to ask your question. I think Olushade Sonade, if I'm not mistaken, you asked a question.
Yes, I did. I was wondering about the spelling of that search engine, the one he mentioned after Google. How do you spell the name of that search engine after Google?
Medallia.
The one
That
he
was
mentioned after
the
Google. I know there's Google
what I
My
mentioned.
Business. How do you spell that?
MELLDIAL. I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, how do we actually deliver our promises, not just in products, you know? As an entrepreneur, you have done your due diligence, packaged everything and all that. But in how customers feel, you know, since you, like you said, that you interact with, from your experience, you have interacted with thousands and thousands of people handling, you know, agents, you know, customer experiences and all that. How can we actually deliver on this promise? Not just in product, but how the customer feel? That's my very first question. Then, is there a gap between internal brand perception and external customer reality? Then the last one is the reviews for testimonial. Like before you joined this call, I said how after having done all and we have feedbacks and all that, I asked that how can we actually use this living feedbacks for innovation? That's those are my questions. So thank you.
So a couple of things. And so I'll actually kind of take the last question first, and then I'll kind of move backwards. If you think about the latest tools in AI allow you to do, I'll say, near real time adjustment on sentiment. So for instance, as you're getting customer feedback, you now need to adjust your experience through using there's a set of tools. Google probably has the most extensive set of tools, I would say. So you're able to use what they call a digital agent, and that digital agent can actually act as your responder, okay, or actually help you change your content, okay, to be responsive. So I would say that one of the latest things I did not necessarily talk about in my comments is using these digital agents. And Google has probably the most extensive set now that interact with their chat GBT like service called Gemini. So you should take a look at that. So Gemini, and then the Google tools that allow you to have digital agents. And those digital agents, it's like digital labor that helps you. So what happens is if you want to make those real-time changes or real-time adjustment, or even look for content that relates to what your customers are talking about. So let's say your customer's talking about a particular, let's say agricultural tool. Okay. And then now you can go and that agent find adjacent information and data that helps make that very sticky in real time. So now you're not even having to do the research. It's coming to you as long as you set it up that way correctly. Okay. So that's one thing. I think it goes back to the first question I think you asked was about you have the tools in place, you have the things in place to understand sentiment and how do you get the promise of that. So what happens is that's why I always use a bit of a focus group every time if I'm launching something or I'm adding a new product. I try to do a focus group with a set of very friendly customers to get that very frank feedback. And what I tell them, don't treat me like you're my friend. Treat me like you're buying from me and you're willing to buy from me again. Okay. So tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you feel. And that usually that very frank feedback, if you alter that into your experience or put that in your customer journey, usually will yield you the correct response. I do this frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second question you asked, you asked the second question, I can't remember tonight. But
third one is I was actually talking about the gap between internal brand perception and external customer reality.
Oh, yes. I guess I can. So what happens is that gap, this all goes back to customer journey for me. That gap gets closed.
Okay.
When you really understand the customer journey. You understand why you want the customer to buy and who are you selling to. You got to understand those two things. And when you close the gap very quickly. So I will tell you, I'll give you, anyway, and what I'm telling you is this whole concept of customer journey is the rigor that you have to put into this closing this trust. So think about it. If somebody, I'll give you an example, in the US, if somebody's going to buy something from Apple, nobody has any question about Apple.com's, what their products, how they're described, and the trust in the website, in terms of trust in the website, the digital experience, and the buy. So the question is, I would tell you, look at the gold standard in experience, Apple and Amazon. These are the two. I compare myself constantly to how am I mean, I don't have the billions of dollars to spend that an Apple spends, but I'm trying to understand how I can make my experience like that, okay, as best as I can. Or like an Amazon. I'm trying to constantly look at how they're doing, that's kind of like the gold standard for me, how they interact and work. So you have to say, when you want to close that gap, what is my customer journey? How do I compare myself to those that are the gold standard? Okay. And then what are my customer journeys? And how do I make sure that I'm creating trust? Okay. Trust is all important in the experience. Once you got somebody convinced to buy, now you want to be convinced them to trust you.
Okay.
So that's and then that trust creates repeatability.
Okay.
Anytime I buy something, I buy 5-6 things a year from Apple. I don't think twice about it. If I'm thinking about my phone, I think about Apple. Okay. That's for me. Okay. But not only for me, for billions of people. Okay. So what happens is, how do you compare against those standards? Number one. Number two, how do you make sure your customer journey is a journey that's building trust? Use a focus group to help, friendlies, to help you make that adjustment, and then fourthly, make sure you're having a trusted experience on transaction.
All right. Before you go, sir, I would like to ask again that taking African markets, as an example, where we talked about the focus group now. Yes, and picking some of my customers that have been patronizing me, like in my in our space presently, we are trying to we are into flowers and all that, trying to transition into combating malnutrition in children.
Mhm.
Now that our flagship product was actually functional products for diabetic-friendly products for adults. Now we saw an opportunity in combating malnutrition in children. Now you realize that these two groups, we are not going to serve the same group now. How do I come about a focus group that not be my target customers right from the onset,
Mhm.
you know? And how do I get them to actually test these new products that I'm going in, so that in order to have a sizable view of what's going to look like if I commercialize these other products. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So how do you get at least a test group in an area that
Yes.
has not experienced yet? So I believe I've in the healthcare arena, um, two things. Sometimes I've seen people use the WHO for some research somewhere. Not that you want to tell them about your idea or your product, but they can help you maybe attract the right uh, let's say healthcare providers that would have an interest in connecting, especially with malaria. Okay, so I would say WHO is one way that you might contact or use research. Use research with them. Okay? The other piece is there are certain NGOs that non-profit researching because it might be to share information and data as it could be of effect for them. So I would suggest that. In my experiences in Africa, I worked pretty extensively on visa services for countries. And what we found was that we had to find a group of when we did our customer journeys, a group of citizens that in a particular country that a target country that were traveling into the countries that I was doing some work, and then we were able to do this all digitally, where we were able to put out a questionnaire, get some feedback, and then we used that into our customer journeys, depending on the countries that were target countries for the country identity visa service. So in that case, I was able to use travel agents to get the data.
Okay. Now, before you go, sir, I would like to ask that now I am an African vendor, into processing of functional foods, seeking to export my products maybe to America, outside. Really have the feel of what those customers over there, that they really want, So how am I going to, what am I going to do, You said you were into visa services and all that. You actually had that capacity. Maybe your company had that capacity to actually unpick, focus group in the country that you are going into. Not everybody in Africa has that capacity. If I am going into I want my business to be in Canada and I'm exporting, and what are those things that what's the availability of this focus group in that country to the degree that anything I'm doing here, I can actually tailor what is happening there to here, because everybody, after all these customers, everybody's seeking to like, okay, I've done my due diligence, I have to sell, exchanging.
So one way to do it is to around the product set that you have is to
Okay.
is to, like, for instance, like you're asking here, there are companies that can help you
Okay.
identify a focus group.
Okay.
So and I can basically make some suggestions about if you want to launch something in Canada, okay, who might you talk to or engage with to do some customer journey work and some as well as a focus group,
Okay.
something like that. So I can make some suggestions. The what it takes though, in terms of, we have so much information digitally, and we have so much around, especially with the generative AI models now. It's generally easier to get the basic information about what might be interesting to the target market you have. But if you're looking for those initial customers, you probably have to use I'll say a marketing advisor on the ground to help you get things off.
Come again.
So and that's available in the market.
Can you come again? You have to get what?
A marketing advisor.
Okay.
So I would do one of two things. The first thing I would do is use the generative AI and understand and ask the persona questions
Okay.
about the products. Who are the people that would
Okay.
buy? Where are they at? Who are the targets? That's the first thing I would do. And the second thing I would do is engage somebody in Canada and say, who does market work, and say, I need you to, let's take a limited engagement to help you develop your customer journey
Okay.
and identify your initial
All
customers.
right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to apologize. I know I have to go on to another meeting, but if there's additional questions, please reach out to the Kuueza team and they can be in touch with me. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Jata, for that insightful discussion today. And like he just mentioned, you can reach out to the Kuueza team. I believe for each vendor who's here, you have a relationship manager who you're supposed to work with. So you can relate your question to your relationship manager, or also send it to our official email address to respond to any of those inquiries. So before we go, we would love to hear the final words from Dr. Gatson before we round up for today. Thank you, Dr. Gatson.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm excited to see the engagement and the interaction. Of course, I'm sure few people might not have the same exposure as the last, with some of the last questions that were asked, but it really, for me, it doesn't matter where you are. Business and commerce is the same, right? We have to use the same paradigm. We have to use the same strategy. And I really want everybody to take advantage of the discussion we had today and say, how do I change the paradigm? In our mindset, quite often we believe that the way we do business in Africa is different to the way you do business in the US. No, it's not different. It's the exact same thing. The same strategy applies, the same customer acquisition strategy applies, the whole notion of a customer journey applies. The journey might be different, but at the end of the day, you have to understand your customer. You have to understand what drives them. You have to understand what will make them close the deal with you, what will make them happy, what will satisfy their need. It doesn't matter where you are, the principles are the same. So I really want each of you, probably as an exercise, to go back and say, what is my typical customer journey? Okay? Do that and try to understand based on your target market where you are. If you're selling tea in Kenya, you say, I want to sell in the US, okay, what's my typical customer journey? Where is he going to find me at the first place? And how do I attract that customer? How do I convert that customer? How do I keep that customer? What do I have to do to improve either on the service quality or the product quality, what have you? If you're in Ghana, same thing. Who is that customer that I want to target? So I really want you guys to take that as a to-do, to think about what is my customer journey and how do I improve the customer journey for my customer to make sure I can provide a better customer service that will lead to more sales and also improve retention. So those are some of the words I would like to give you guys as you leave today. And I really want to thank you on behalf of Kuueza and for participating. And we're looking forward to see you again. Don't be strangers, keep coming, and let's keep sharing some of this experience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gatson, for that. I believe we all heard from Dr. Gatson. And like I mentioned earlier, if there are any questions that you want to, kindly reach out to your ROM, your relationship manager, and we'll definitely give you a quick response to that. I think we've come to the end of today's webinar. Until then, have a wonderful day. Thank you all for joining.